let's go into July for some follow-up to things that occurred at the last meeting. And it was a reminder, first, that we talked about the LA County Board of Supervisors and their idea to place on the ballot an initiative to give them authority to oust the current sheriff. Now, the county sheriff is an elected position. So really what they're saying is, we want to have the ability for 4 of us on the LA County Board of Supervisors to oust an elected official that's been elected by the whole county. It seems totally as a horrible power grab. And as far as I'm concerned, you're going to keep hearing me say, vote no early and often, and tell your friends also. So if passed, what it does is it makes the sheriff subordinate to the LA County Board of Supervisors. And even though Catherine Barger did not vote for this, if you remember that she also supports the other candidate. And it would make the sheriff subordinate to the LA County Board of Supervisors. And I'm just wondering if they're as soft on crime as Gaston is. Because what they've done is cut their budget, and the sheriff's stations, the 23 stations, are getting approximately 70% of the budget that they got before. So maybe they don't want the sheriffs to enforce the law. I have no idea. Well, if 70% is the average station level at all 23 stations, and if Santa Clarita is below 70%, and the budget cuts have been removed due to the LA County Board of Supervisors positions, how do we maintain the budget from the city? Because we're a contract city. This is one of the problems that we have when we contract law enforcement. One is we contract a certain number of deputy minutes per week or per month or whatever. And right now, we were told at the last coffee with Captain that the way that they're maintaining it is through overtime. But it emphasizes the fact that we contract to have the LA County Sheriff Department provide our sheriff services, and we do not have the ability to set policy. So it's something that is a problem. Now, I think that overall in the city, I know in my household, there's a concern about safety that I've never seen before. I mean, when I first moved out here, and I know it was a long, long time ago, we didn't lock our doors. There was no reason to. But now, every door gets locked all the time. And some people are starting to say, we need to protect ourselves. So the idea of concealable weapon permits are now starting to not just occur here in Santa Clarita, but across the country. So the Supreme Court of the United States declared for the first time that the Constitution, the right to bear arms, protects an individual's right to carry a handgun for self-defense. And they struck down New York State's requirement to show cause in order to carry. Now, California operated the same as New York, where if you wanted a carry permit, you had to show them that you had a fear of something that could be objectively defined. So you couldn't just say, I want to protect myself. You have to say, well, Joe's trying to kill me, I'm getting death threats, I'm carrying a huge amount of money, I'm carrying a lot of precious metals, or whatever it is. So the court found that law enacted in 2013 that required you to show cause violated the Constitution of the United States and nullified it. Well, similar to New York, LA County operates in exactly the same way. Now in California, sheriffs are the ones that decide, or the law enforcement agency for a municipality decides who may obtain a carry permit. And in LA County, they were very strict on enforcing this idea you needed to show cause. So the recent Supreme Court ruling directly affected not only California, but LA County, is the fact that you no longer needed to do that. And but it still allowed states to prohibit guns in sensitive places. So New York made almost everywhere a sensitive place, and now they're going to be back in court and have that overturned. But in a television interview, our sheriff said that he anticipated about 5,000 new concealed carry permits requests. And so it almost sounded like there was a rush on the sheriff stations with all these people turning in their permit applications. So I decided to try it out. I'm going to, my own concealed carry permit experience. So I went down to Turner's, you know where Turner's is, over there on Bouquet, and I purchased a new 5-shot 38, because I wanted a firearm that absolutely was concealable and absolutely was registered. I even discussed my choice with the captain, and the captain looked at me and said, well, you know, that weapon's really not accurate at long distances. And I said, well, I know that. I'm not interested in getting in a gunfight. You know, I'm interested in self-protection. And if I can't get him with 5, I'm done anyway, right? So it's just not going to work. So he said, well, you understood that. And he also understood why I chose a wheel gun rather than a semi-automatic, because they're much more reliable. And you can take a revolver and look at it sideways and tell if it's loaded. And with a modern one, unlike the one that our friend, the actor, shot his person with, Baldwin, you can drop them on the hammer. Nothing's going to happen. So I wanted something like that. Well, in order to purchase a firearm today, you have to pass a knowledge test. You have to show that you're knowledgeable about how the firearms work and what the laws are. And I took the test and passed it. And if you don't know how to pass the test, you have a set of videos to watch and stuff. And then I waited 10 days to pick it up. I waited the cooling off period, which I thought was interesting because a couple years ago, I bought a shotgun. I had to wait 30 days. But now it's back to 10. Okay. So I got online. I got my application, all 14 pages of it. I filled it out. And I said, I'm going to go and turn it in. So it's interesting because online, the instructions aren't exactly up to date. So I took this application and I turned it in. I went to turn it in the morning because I wanted to avoid the rush. I didn't want to get stampeded by all those other people turning in applications with me. And I walked into the sheriff's station at 6 o'clock in the morning, and I found one person waiting, and they were not turning in a permit. When I got to the front of the line, which wasn't very long, the officer said, well, our system is down. Can you come back at 3 o'clock? I said, okay, I'll do that, right? So I waited till the afternoon. I came back expecting now to get overrun with people. I walked in. I was the only one there. So I turned it in. So I don't really think there's going to be a rush to get thousands and thousands of these permits. It's a little hard to do that. And then they'll tell you that this process is going to take 8 or 9 months. Well, it takes a long time to read the 14 pages and figure out whether everything is okay. So at the last meeting, someone asked, does obtaining a concealed weapon permit require you to purchase liability insurance? The answer is no. And I thought about it a little bit more, and I thought, well, why should it? Why should it cost you have to buy liability insurance if it's supposed to be a constitutional right? But the answer is no. So I went to my umbrella policy because I have my normal homeowner's insurance, and then I have an umbrella, a $2 million umbrella policy over the top of that. And I went to it and I said, I'm going to look at it and see, because there are certain things, like if you're an elected official, your insurance rates go up. You know that? And I wanted to see if on my insurance paperwork or the application, there was something that say, do you have a CCW? Well, there's no checkbox for that. Now, that might not be that same next year, but for this year, the answer is no. And I already answered the question about how Santa Clarita is maintaining their contract compliance with it, it's through overtime. But I got to thinking about that. I want to ask the captain another question, because I don't understand, if you're 30% short on budget, how do you afford overtime? Are these guys working their overtime for comp time? Well, that just pushes the P out a lot farther. So I'm going to continue to, I'll get a hold of Captain and we'll talk about that some more. And he's pretty straightforward with his answers. I was very impressed with him. And as much as I support the Santa Clarita Sheriff's Department, if you're going to ask me, can the Santa Clarita Sheriff's Department keep you safe? My answer is no. Well, why? Well, because there's not enough officers to protect you 24/7. I mean, they got 60 guys there? So 60 guys for 270,000 residents? The likelihood, the probability that they will be there when you absolutely need them is very, very low. And why? Because that's not necessarily their job. Their job is to document what happened, go punish the person that did it after the fact. And it's gotten so bad that even before this soft on crime thing started, I know individuals that have businesses here in Santa Clarita that get broken into regularly. And they do not report them. Why? Because if they report the crime, they have to wait for the detectives to come out from the valley, and then they shut their business down for a day while they're trying to figure out what's going on, and they never catch anybody. So these people say, why do I want to do this? It costs me more money than if I just say, okay, I'm going to forget it and move on. And then, as we learned in Texas, even if they show up, doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to help you. And we had kids dying at the time when they were waiting out in the hall. So it doesn't always work that way. Well, what really takes place when you really think about law enforcement, what law enforcement really is, the police department is a part of an overall law enforcement process. They're not a unique part that's all by itself. And when law enforcement is working properly, they'll reduce the probability that a crime will occur to you by taking people that commit crimes out of the population, right? So I mean, how many times lately have we heard, oh, this guy just committed this heinous crime. He was arrested 37 times before. He has this long list of stuff. Why is he still out there with everybody else? He's out there with everybody else because of what's going on. So if you don't remove criminals from the general population, they'll commit crimes again. And it's exactly what's happening. So I was very disappointed to see in the paper that the campaign to oust Gascon failed to secure, well, their claim that they failed to secure enough votes for the recall ballot, that they were somewhere 195,000 short. Now, even before they claimed this, the committee was working on the recall was complaining that the count was being conducted improperly. So I suspect we're going to court now, and we'll see what's going to happen. But we've got to do something. It's just not the right thing that's going on. So are there any questions or comments?
Hey, Alan. So I don't know that I'm doing the math correctly, but what you were saying about sheriffs and overtime and how does this work with the budget, I wonder if it's really about two separate budgets. The budgets that the sheriff's office, the sheriff's department, kind of carries, and then the city's budget that we pay for as taxpayers directly.
Right.
And I wonder if, as taxpayers, we're getting tagged, kind of penalized by having to pay overtime rates, which basically would net us less sheriff time in the field. And the sheriff has a certain way to perhaps manage their budget, which is different than the city's budget and how the taxpayers would recognize hours spent.
And I'm not sure. See, the thing that I'm not, when he asked that question, it sounded like our contract money goes into an overall fund for sheriffs, and then the LA County supervisors cut the budget by 30%, and so they actually cut the number of staff at every sheriff's station by 30%. So if we're paying for, let's do it in people instead of minutes. So if we're paying for like 90 deputies and we only have 70, how much overtime does it take to make up for 20? Now, when I turned in my concealed carry permit, I thought it was interesting because I told you I got there at 6 o'clock in the morning. Well, when I came back in the afternoon, I was there about 5:30 in the afternoon, and the same deputy was there. I said, boy, oh boy, you're still here? And he goes, yeah, I'm working a double shift. We're all working one double shift a week. Well, that's a lot of hours. And the question is, if we're paying for it, you're right. If we're paying for it, I don't know, do they pay them overtime? Do they give them comp time? That would be even worse, because if they pay them comp time, then sometime in the future we're going to see an even bigger drop when the people start turning in their comp time, right? I don't know how that works. And I see exactly what you're saying, and I understand it, and I don't know how to justify it, but I'm going to get either Captain Diaz here, or I'll ask him the question, and we'll solve that problem. Okay? Boy, oh boy, you're sharp. Here we go.
Am I on? Ellen, regarding the Gascon recall, if some of the politicians in our city council have endorsed recalls, impeachments, that type of thing, and then they don't happen, what's your feelings on politicians are endorsing those kinds of things and the risk of it's not a real official ballot or candidate, what the risk is in the aftermath of doing that?
Well, I think it emphasizes one of the big problems that we've talked about for a long time. Let's take, for example, the fire department. You know, we don't contract for fire services. We're in an LA County fire district, so we're in the same boat. If LA County decides to cut their budget, well, they can't because it's a district. They're not supposed to. We'll talk about that in a minute. But we've asked many times, why don't we have our own police department? Well, if we had our own police department, we could also have our own prosecuting attorney. But right now, we're stuck with LA counties. So some people say, well, it's too expensive. If we were to have our own police department, we would have to have all these different things that we would need. And what I say to them is, I didn't say go out and have your complete own police department. You could still contract for certain other things. But if you make the decision what you're going to contract for and what you're not going to contract for, instead of just handing money down to LA County, then at least you can control some of the policy. But right now, since we can't control the policy, whatever LA County does, we're doing. No, we're really not autonomous as a city at all. We're not autonomous in the fire department. We're not autonomous in the police department. We've talked many times about that this area is short of paramedics. Paramedic squads they're working their tails off because there aren't enough of them. Well, we have to go talk to the county. The city council doesn't do anything. When we talk to city council candidates, I think it's important that we understand and we question them on the boundaries of what the city has taken on of its own and what we give away. When I ask the question of density, you know, I've gone to council before and said, well, why do you keep approving all these new developments? And you know what they do? They go, oh, it's not us. It's the water guys. They're the ones that are giving them all the approvals. And then if you go to the water guys and you say, why are you giving them all these will serve letters? They go, well, it's not us. It's the city that's approving all these developments. The whole thing is that not only do we need to have enough control over our own destiny, we need to have people that aren't going to continually hand the problem to someone else and not take care of it. It's a shame.